The old piano sat under the big oak tree like it had always belonged there. Its black paint was chipped and faded, showing years of weather and wear. But when Lisa's fingers touched the keys, magic happened. Every morning at 8:30, she would wheel her piano to the same corner of University Avenue, right where the main campus walkway met the street. Lisa had been doing this for 3 years now. She was 22, a music therapy student who started playing on the street not because she wanted to, but because she had to. When her scholarship got cut in half during her second year, she faced a choice that many students know too well: drop out and give up on her dreams, or find another way to pay for school. The piano had been her grandmother's, sitting silent in her tiny apartment until desperation turned it into her lifeline. What started as a way to make rent money slowly became something much bigger. Lisa discovered that her corner wasn't just a place to earn a few dollars. It was becoming the heart of the campus in ways she never expected. Every day brought new faces and familiar ones. There was the shy freshman from Korea who would stop every Tuesday and Thursday, always dropping $1 in her case when she played classical pieces. He never spoke much English, but his smile said everything when she played Chopin. Lisa learned later that these were the same pieces his mother used to play for him back home. Then there was the group of engineering students who had their own tradition. Every Friday after their toughest exam, they would gather around her piano and request the most random songs. Pop hits, movie themes, even old cartoon music. Lisa would try her best to play whatever they threw at her, and soon other students would join in, singing along badly, but with pure joy. These Friday sessions became legendary on campus. Students would finish their classes early just to catch the show. The music drew all kinds of people. Lisa watched couples have their first dance to her melodies right there on the sidewalk. She saw stressed students sit on the nearby benches during finals week, letting the music calm their nerves before big exams. Groups of friends would meet at her piano instead of the usual campus spots, using her music as the soundtrack to their daily catch dash-ups. One morning, Lisa noticed an elderly man sitting on the bench behind her piano. He came every day for 2 weeks, just listening. Finally, he approached her during a break. His name was Professor Johnson from the history department, and he told her something that changed how she saw what she was doing. He said her music reminded him why he fell in love with teaching in the first place. The joy, the community, the way art could bring people together across all differences. The professor wasn't alone. Lisa started noticing faculty members taking longer routes to their offices just to walk past her corner. Some would drop coins in her case. Others would just pause and listen for a moment before continuing their day. The maintenance crew began, timing their work in the area to coincide with her morning sessions. Even the campus security guards would slow down their patrol cars when passing by. But it was the students who really made the corner special. Lisa's piano became an unofficial meeting point. Study groups would form around her music. Students working on group projects would meet there instead of the crowded library. International students, who often felt isolated on the large campus, found a place where language barriers didn't matter because music spoke for everyone. Lisa began to recognize the regulars and learn their stories. There was the pre-med student who was working 3 jobs to support his family while maintaining a perfect BA. He would stop by her piano during his 15-minute breaks between shifts, and she would play soft, calming pieces that helped him center himself for the challenges ahead. There was the art student struggling with depression who told Lisa that her music was sometimes the only bright part of her day. The corner became a place where campus diversity truly showed. Students from different majors, different countries, different backgrounds would find themselves singing along to the same song. Lisa played everything. Classical pieces for the music majors, pop songs for the younger students, jazz for the professors who appreciated the complexity, and folk songs. That everyone seemed to know somehow. Word about the piano corner spread beyond just the immediate campus. Alumni visiting the university would make a point to stop by. Parents dropping off their kids for freshman orientation would linger, charmed by the unexpected concert. Even people from the surrounding community would take detours through the campus just to hear the girl with the old piano, Lisa's case filled with more than just coins and bills. Students would leave notes thanking her for making their day better. Sometimes she would find small gifts, flowers, or even homemade cookies. One student left a handwritten poem about how her music helped him through his parents' divorce. Another left a drawing of Lisa at her piano, capturing the joy on her face as she played. The university's social media pages began featuring Lisa's corner in their posts about campus life. Prospective students touring the campus would ask about the piano music they heard. It became one of those unique features that made the university feel different from other schools. More personal, more community-oriented, more alive. As her third year of playing approached, Lisa realized that what had started as a desperate attempt to pay for school had grown into something much more meaningful. She wasn't just a street musician anymore. She had accidentally become the curator of a daily campus tradition that brought joy to thousands of people. Her corner had become a symbol of what made college life special, the unexpected moments of beauty and connection that happen when people slow down long enough to appreciate them. The old piano under the oak tree had found its purpose. Every chip in its paint and every worn key told the story of a community that had grown around the simple act of one person sharing their gift with the world. Lisa had no idea that this beautiful chapter of her life was about to face its biggest challenge. Yet, Dean Patricia Williams had always prided herself on running a tight ship. In her 15 years at the university, she had transformed what she called a chaotic campus into a well-oiled academic machine. Every policy, every rule, every procedure had her fingerprints on it. She believed that order and discipline were the foundations of a respectable institution. Patricia had worked her way up from assistant professor to dean through careful political maneuvering and an unwavering commitment to what she called professional standards. She kept her office immaculate, her schedule precise, and her expectations crystal clear. Students knew her as the dean who never smiled in meetings, and faculty members learned quickly that her decisions were final. The trouble started on a Tuesday morning when Patricia received a phone call that would change everything. The voice on the other end belonged to Richard Hartwell, one of the university's most generous donors. His family had contributed millions to the school over the years, and his name was on the business building and the main library. "Patricia, I need to discuss something with you." Richard's voice carried the tone of someone used to getting what he wanted. "My wife and I were showing some potential investors around campus last week, and frankly, we were embarrassed by what we saw." Patricia straightened in her chair. Embarrassing wealthy donors was the last thing any dean wanted to hear. "What seems to be the problem, Richard?" "There's some kind of street performer with a beat-up piano right in the middle of campus. It looks unprofessional, Patricia. These investors are considering a major partnership with our business program, and the first thing they see is what looks like a homeless person playing music on the street." Patricia had heard about the piano player, of course, but she had never paid much attention. In her mind, the campus was about serious academic work, not entertainment. "I understand your concern, Richard. I'll look into it immediately." "Good, because frankly, if we're going to continue our support of this institution, we need to know that you're maintaining the kind of environment that reflects our values." The phone call ended, but the message was clear. Patricia had built her career on keeping donors happy, and she wasn't about to let some street musician jeopardize the university's funding. She called her assistant immediately. "Get me everything you can find about this piano player on campus. I want to know what authority we have to remove them." Within an hour, Patricia had a file on her desk. Lisa Chun, music therapy student, had been playing piano on university property for 3 years without any official permits. Patricia's legal team confirmed that the university had every right to prohibit commercial activities on campus grounds. But Patricia wasn't just dealing with Richard's complaint. That same week, she received 2 more calls from major donors. The first was from Elizabeth Monroe, whose family had endowed several scholarships. Elizabeth complained that the noise from the piano was disrupting her grandson's study sessions in the nearby library. The second call came from the university's biggest corporate sponsor, whose representative mentioned that the unprofessional atmosphere might affect their decision to renew their partnership. Patricia saw the situation clearly. A few wealthy families were unhappy, and their displeasure could cost the university millions in funding. The solution seemed obvious and simple. Remove the problem. She drafted the cease and desist order herself, making sure the language was formal and intimidating. She cited noise ordinances, unauthorized commercial activity, and campus safety regulations. Patricia wanted to make sure there would be no room for argument or appeal. The next morning, Patricia personally supervised as campus security delivered the notice. She watched from her office window as they taped the official document to the piano bench. She felt satisfied that she had handled the situation quickly and decisively. When Lisa arrived that morning to find the notice, Patricia was already back at her desk, moving on to other business. She had no interest in the young woman's reaction or circumstances. In Patricia's world, rules were rules, and exceptions led to chaos. But Lisa didn't give up easily. That afternoon, she appeared at Patricia's office, asking for a meeting. Patricia's assistant, following standing orders, turned her away without a second thought. When Lisa tried again the next day, she was told that the dean's schedule was completely full for the next month. Lisa's third attempt came with a letter explaining her situation. She wrote about being a student, about needing the money for tuition, about the positive impact her music had on campus life. She included photos of students gathered around her piano and testimonials from fellow students about how the music helped them through difficult times. Patricia read the letter with growing irritation. She saw it as emotional manipulation, an attempt to get special treatment through sob stories. In her response, dictated to her assistant, Patricia made her position clear. The university had policies for a reason, and no individual student's circumstances justified breaking those policies. What Patricia didn't realize was that her harsh response only made the situation worse. When Lisa shared the dean's cold rejection with her friends, word spread quickly through the campus community. Students who had never paid attention to administrative decisions suddenly found themselves outraged by what they saw as heartless bureaucracy. Patricia, meanwhile, was receiving praise from the donors who had complained. Richard Hartwell called to thank her for her swift action and professional handling of the situation. Elizabeth Monroe sent a note expressing her appreciation for the dean's commitment to maintaining campus standards. From Patricia's perspective, she had successfully solved a problem that was threatening the university's relationships with major donors. She had demonstrated leadership, decisiveness, and a commitment to the institution's best interests. The fact that some students might be upset seemed like a minor concern compared to the millions of dollars in funding she had protected. But Patricia had made a critical miscalculation. She had focused entirely on the complaints of a few wealthy donors, while completely ignoring the impact of her decision on the thousands of students, faculty, and staff who had come to love Lisa's daily concerts. In the days following the ban, Patricia began to notice changes around campus. Students seemed quieter, less engaged. Faculty members who usually greeted her warmly in the hallways now offered only polite nods. Her assistant mentioned that the phone had been ringing constantly. with people asking about the piano player. Patricia dismissed these concerns as temporary. She believed that students would forget about the piano player within a week or two, and campus life would return to normal. She had no idea that her decision to ban Lisa's music had set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately challenge everything she believed about leadership, community, and the true purpose of a university. The dean, who prided herself on maintaining order, was about to discover that sometimes the most important things in life can't be controlled by rules and regulations. A silence was deafening. That's what struck everyone first about the corner where Lisa's piano used to sit. The old oak tree still stood there, its branches swaying in the morning breeze, but something essential was missing. The space felt hollow, like a room where all the furniture had been suddenly removed. Students walking to their 8 a.m. classes noticed it immediately. Their footsteps seemed louder on the concrete pathway. Conversations felt more forced. The natural rhythm that had guided campus life for 3 years was gone, replaced by an uncomfortable quiet that made everyone walk a little faster. Heads down, avoiding eye contact. Jake, a senior business major, was one of the first to feel the change deeply. For 2 years, he had timed his walk to class perfectly so he could catch Lisa's morning set. Her music had become his daily dose of motivation, the thing that helped him face another day of grueling coursework and part-time job stress. Now, as he passed the empty corner, he felt a sadness he couldn't quite explain. It was like losing a friend he saw every day but never really talked to. The Korean exchange student, who had always stopped for the classical pieces, found himself taking a different route to avoid the corner entirely. The emptiness reminded him too much of how lonely he felt being so far from home. Lisa's Chopin had been his connection to something familiar and beautiful. Without it, the campus felt even more foreign and isolating. But it wasn't just the regular listeners who felt the loss. The entire ecosystem that had grown around Lisa's piano began to collapse. The Friday afternoon gatherings of engineering. Students had nowhere to happen. They tried meeting at the student union, but it wasn't the same. The music had been the glue that held their tradition together, and without it, the group slowly drifted apart. Study groups that had formed around the piano bench struggled to find new meeting spots. The library was too quiet and restrictive. The student center was too noisy and chaotic. Nothing replicated the perfect balance of gentle background music and open-air freedom that Lisa's Corner had provided. Many of these groups simply dissolved, leaving students to struggle with their coursework alone. The effect rippled through the faculty as well. Professor Johnson, who had made a habit of walking past Lisa's piano on his way to morning lectures, found himself feeling unexpectedly depressed. The absence of music made his daily commute feel mechanical and lifeless. He started taking his car to work instead of walking, which meant he missed the casual conversations with students that had always energized his teaching. The maintenance crew noticed changes too. Without the gathering crowds around the piano, litter in that area decreased dramatically. But so did the sense of life and energy. The grounds supervisor, a man who had worked at the university for 25 years, mentioned to his team that the campus felt dead in a way he had never experienced before. Social media became the first place where students began expressing their feelings about the loss. It started with simple posts: "Miss the piano music," and "Campus feels weird without our pianist." But as days passed, the posts became longer and more emotional. A sophomore pre-med student wrote about how Lisa's music had helped her through anxiety attacks during organic chemistry season. She described sitting on the bench behind the piano, letting the melodies calm her racing heart before big exams. Now, those exams felt twice as scary without her musical sanctuary. An art student posted a drawing she had made of Lisa at her piano, surrounded by happy faces of diverse students. The caption read, "This corner used to represent everything good about our school. Now it's just empty concrete. The post was shared hundreds of times within hours, that the stories kept coming. Students shared memories of first dates that started with dancing to Lisa's music. International students talked about how the piano corner was the first place they felt welcome on campus. Seniors reminisced about how Lisa's music had been the soundtrack to their entire college experience. But perhaps the most powerful post came from a student who preferred to remain anonymous. She wrote about struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts during her freshman year. Every day she would sit near Lisa's piano, not necessarily listening to the music, but finding comfort in being surrounded by so much joy and community. She credited those daily moments with helping her find the strength to seek counseling and ultimately overcome her darkest period. The administration began receiving emails from parents whose children called home complaining about how different a campus felt. Alumni who had visited recently and enjoyed the piano music wrote asking what had happened to the wonderful young musician they had heard during their trips. Even prospective students and their families noticed the change. Tour guides found themselves struggling to explain the awkward silence when groups passed the empty corner. Some high school seniors who had been planning to attend the university started questioning their choice, saying the campus felt less welcoming than during their initial visits when Lisa had been playing. The campus bookstore, which was located near Lisa's corner, saw a noticeable drop in foot traffic. The owner realized that many customers had been students who stopped to listen to music and then wandered into the store afterward. Without the music to draw people to that area, his sales declined significantly. Local businesses around the campus experienced similar effects. The coffee shop across the street had benefited from students grabbing drinks before settling in to listen to Lisa's music. The sandwich place nearby had seen regular customers who would buy lunch and eat it while enjoying the outdoor concert. These small businesses, which had never directly paid attention to the piano music, suddenly understood how much it had contributed to the area's economic ecosystem. The most heartbreaking sight was Lisa herself. Students would occasionally spot her on campus, carrying her backpack and walking to classes like any other student. But she looked different somehow. The brightness in her eyes had dimmed. The confident posture she had while performing was replaced by something more withdrawn and defeated. Some students tried to approach her, to express their support or ask if there was anything they could do to help. Lisa always smiled and thanked them, but she seemed reluctant to talk about the situation. The ban had hurt her more than just financially. It had taken away her sense of purpose and community connection. The silence at the corner became a daily reminder of what the campus had lost. It wasn't just about the music anymore. It was about the way art could bring people together across all their differences. It was about how small acts of beauty could transform an entire community. It was about the difference between a place where people simply attended classes and a place where people truly belonged out as days turned into weeks. The empty corner stood as a monument to administrative power exercised without wisdom. The dean who had wanted to remove a distraction had inadvertently removed the heart of campus life. The silence that replaced Lisa's music spoke louder than her melodies ever had, telling a story of loss that was about to inspire an incredible response. The rebellion started with a single phone recording. Maya, a senior music education major, had been walking past the empty corner for the 10th day in a row when she couldn't take the silence anymore. She pulled out her phone, found a video she had recorded of Lisa playing 6 months earlier, and hit play. The familiar melody of Somewhere Over the Rainbow filled the air, and for a moment it felt like everything was normal again. But Maya didn't stop there. She sat down on the bench where Lisa's piano used to be and played the recording louder. Within minutes, other students began to gather. They recognized the song, they recognized Lisa's unique style, and most importantly, they recognized what they had been missing. "This is what we need to do," Maya announced to the small crowd that had formed. "If they won't let her play here, we'll bring her music back ourselves." She created a group chat that night called Bring Back Our Music and invited everyone she could think of. By morning, it had 50 members. By the end of the week, it had over 800. The first organized flash mob happened on a Wednesday at noon. Maya had chosen the timing carefully. It was when the most students would be walking between classes. She and 12 other students gathered at Lisa's corner, each with their phones loaded with recordings of Lisa's performances. At exactly 12:15, they all pressed play simultaneously. The effect was magical and slightly chaotic. The different recordings weren't perfectly synchronized, creating an echo effect that was actually more powerful than a single piano. Students stopped walking and stared. Some pulled out their phones to record. Others just stood there, smiling. For the first time in weeks. But the most amazing thing happened next. Students who had never met before started singing along. The Korean exchange student, who used to stop for classical music, joined in humming a melody he recognized. The pre-med student who had used Lisa's music to calm her anxiety found herself relaxing for the first time since the ban. The art student who had been struggling with depression felt a spark of joy. She thought she had lost forever. Campus security arrived within 10 minutes, but they faced an impossible situation. The students weren't violating any specific rules. They weren't blocking walkways or creating dangerous crowds. They were just standing in a public area, playing music from their personal devices. The security guards looked confused and radioed for guidance, but there was no clear policy for handling a flash mob of phone recordings. Word of the successful first flash mob spread like wildfire across social media. Students who hadn't been able to attend saw the videos and wanted to join the next one. The movement grew from a dozen participants to hundreds almost overnight. But Maya and her growing team of organizers were just getting started. They realized that if they kept doing the same thing in the same place, the administration would eventually find a way to stop them. So they decided to take Lisa's music everywhere. The next flash mob happened at the library steps during the morning. Rush. 40 students gathered with their phones and portable Bluetooth speakers, playing Lisa's gentle classical pieces that had always helped people study. Librarians, initially concerned about noise, found themselves charmed by the brief musical interlude that seemed to energize rather than distract the students. The third flash mob took place in the student union during lunch hour. This time, nearly 100 students participated, playing Lisa's more upbeat covers of popular songs. The cafeteria staff stopped serving food just to watch and listen. Some even started dancing behind the counter, creating a moment of pure joy that reminded everyone why Lisa's music had been so special. But the movement wasn't just about flash mobs. Students began incorporating Lisa's music into their daily lives in creative ways. Study groups would start their sessions by playing one of her recordings. Intramural sports teams adopted her songs as their warm-up music. Even the campus radio station, run entirely by students, began dedicating an hour each day to playing Lisa's recorded performances. The engineering students, who used to gather for their Friday tradition, found a new way to continue it. They couldn't meet at Lisa's corner anymore, but they could recreate the experience anywhere on campus. Every Friday at 3 p.m., they would choose a different location and play Lisa's recordings while singing along badly and joyfully, just like old times. Their wandering musical celebration became a weekly highlight that other students would actively seek out. Faculty members began getting involved too. Professor Martinez from the psychology department started playing Lisa's music softly before his lectures, saying it helped create a more positive learning environment. The chemistry professor, who had always enjoyed walking past Lisa's piano, began incorporating musical examples into her lessons about sound waves and frequency. The maintenance staff, who had witnessed the daily joy around Lisa's piano for 3 years, showed their support in subtle ways. They would slow down their work when student flash mobs were happening, giving participants extra time before suggesting they move along. Some crew members were even caught humming Lisa's melodies while working. Local news stations began picking up the story. The first report was just a brief segment about student protesters using creative methods. But as the movement grew, journalists realized they were witnessing something much more significant. This wasn't just about one band musician. It was about community, creativity, and the power of grassroots organizing. The coverage attracted attention from alumni who remembered their own positive experiences on campus. Many shared stories on social media about traditions and gathering places that had made their college years special. Some began calling the university directly, expressing concern about the administration's heavy-handed response to what seemed like harmless student activities. Local businesses that had benefited from the foot traffic around Lisa's piano also started showing support. A coffee shop across the street put up a sign reading, "We miss our campus pianist too." The sandwich shop began playing Lisa's recorded music during lunch hours, drawing customers who wanted to remember better times. But perhaps the most powerful moment came during the largest flash mob yet. Over 300 students gathered in the main quad on a Friday afternoon, creating a massive outdoor concert using dozens of phones and speakers. The harmony wasn't perfect, but the emotion was overwhelming. Lisa herself appeared at the edge of the crowd. She had heard about the flash mobs, but hadn't attended any, unsure how she would feel about hearing her own music played back to her. When she saw hundreds of her fellow students gathered together, singing along to songs she had performed, she began to cry. The crowd noticed her and began cheering. Someone started chanting, "Lisa, Lisa," and soon the entire group was calling her name. For the first time since the ban, she smiled the bright, confident smile that everyone remembered from her daily performances. The flash mob movement had accomplished something remarkable. It had taken a community that felt defeated and helpless and transformed it into an active, creative force for change. Lisa's music was no longer confined to one corner under one tree. It had spread throughout the entire campus, carried by the voices and devices of students who refused to let silence win. The administration, watching from their office windows, realized they were facing something they had never dealt with before. This wasn't typical student protest they could simply wait out. This was a celebration of community that was growing stronger every day, and it was about to force them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about leadership and campus life. Dean Patricia Williams sat in her office on a Monday morning, staring at a stack of phone messages that seemed to grow taller every hour. The weekend had been a nightmare of constant calls from reporters, alumni, and angry parents. Her assistant had stopped answering the phone altogether, letting everything go to voicemail because she couldn't handle the volume of complaints. The breaking point had come when Patricia received a call from the university's Board of Trustees. Board Chair Dr. Helen Rodriguez's voice was calm but firm. "Patricia, we need to discuss this piano situation immediately. The board has been receiving calls all weekend, and frankly, we're concerned about the direction this is heading." What Patricia hadn't anticipated was how quickly the story would spread beyond the campus. Local news coverage had attracted regional attention, and national media picked up the story. University Dean Band's beloved student musician had become a trending topic on social media, with thousands of people sharing videos of the flash mobs and expressing outrage at what they saw as administrative overreach. But it was the donor situation that really caught Patricia's attention. While she had acted to appease a few wealthy contributors, many more alumni and supporters were now expressing the opposite view. The university's development office reported that several major donors had called to express their displeasure with the ban. and some had even threatened to redirect their giving to other institutions. The most devastating call came from Thomas Mitchell, an alumnus whose family foundation had been planning to announce a $5 million donation to the music therapy program. Thomas told the development director, "How can we support a program that the administration clearly doesn't value? If they think music therapy isn't important enough to allow on campus, why should we fund it?" Meanwhile, the student movement was gaining momentum in ways Patricia never could have predicted. Maya had organized what she called the Grand Finale, a campus-wide concert planned for the following Friday that would feature not just Lisa's recorded music, but live performances by dozens of student musicians inspired by her story. The event was being promoted across all social media platforms, and students from other universities had begun expressing interest in attending. What started as a small campus protest was turning into a regional gathering that could bring thousands of visitors to the university. Patricia's carefully controlled environment was spiraling beyond her ability to manage. Campus security reported that they couldn't effectively monitor or control the daily flash mobs because they were happening spontaneously in different locations. The maintenance staff mentioned that morale was at an all-time low because they felt caught between supporting the students they had grown to love and following administrative orders. Even Patricia's own staff was showing signs of strain. Her assistant, who had worked with her for 8 years, submitted a formal request for time off, saying she needed to step away from the situation because she was receiving so much negative feedback when answering phones. Several department heads had privately expressed concern about the impact on campus morale and the university's reputation. The final straw came during an emergency board meeting on Wednesday. Patricia walked into the conference room, expecting to defend her decision to a sympathetic audience. Instead, she found herself facing 12 trustees who had spent the previous days fielding calls from angry alumni, concerned parents, and frustrated. Faculty members. Board Chair Rodriguez opened the meeting with a statement that made Patricia's heart sink. "We've received over 400 calls and emails in the past week. The ratio is approximately 30-1 against the music ban. More importantly, we've had 17 alumni contact us about reconsidering their planned donations, representing approximately $12 million in future funding." The board members took turns sharing feedback they had received. One trustee read an email from a distinguished alumna who had graduated 50 years earlier. "The piano corner represented everything I loved about my time at the university. The fact that the current administration would destroy something so beautiful and meaningful shows how far the institution has strayed from its values." Another trustee shared a call from a current parent. "My daughter has been miserable since they banned the Pianist. She's talking about transferring schools because she says the campus doesn't feel like home anymore. We're paying $40,000 a year for her to be happy and get a good education, and right now she's getting neither." But the most powerful testimony came from Dr. James Chun, a trustee and retired professor who had taught at the university for 35 years. He had witnessed the daily impact of Lisa's music throughout his final years of teaching and had seen how it brought the campus community together. "I've watched this institution evolve for over 3 decades, Dr. Chon said, looking directly at Patricia. "I've seen good changes and bad changes, but I've never seen a single administrative decision create such widespread unhappiness. We're not just talking about a few complaining students. We're talking about faculty, staff, alumni, parents, and the broader community all expressing the same concern. When that many people are telling us we made a mistake, perhaps we should listen." The board's message was clear: find a solution, and find it quickly. Patricia left the meeting knowing her job security depended on resolving the crisis she had created. That evening, Patricia did something she hadn't done in years. She walked across campus after dinner taking the route that would lead her past Lisa's former corner. For the first time, she saw the empty space through different eyes. She noticed how students hurried past without the lingering and socializing she remembered from before. She saw the coffee shop across the street with fewer customers. She felt the absence of something she had never paid attention to when it was there. As she stood under the oak tree, Patricia heard music in the distance. Following the sound, she discovered about 40 students gathered near the library, playing Lisa's recordings and singing along. She watched from a distance as she saw something she had missed in all her years of administration. Genuine community joy. The students were from different majors, different backgrounds, different social groups, but they were all connected by this shared experience. Patricia realized that in her effort to create order and professionalism, she had overlooked the human element that made the university special. Friday morning arrived with unprecedented media attention. News vans from 3 television stations parked near campus. Reporters interviewed students about the planned grand finale concert, and social media posts about the event were being shared thousands of times per hour. Patricia knew she had to act before the situation became even more unmanageable. She called an emergency meeting with her staff and announced her decision. The ban would be lifted immediately, and Lisa would be invited to resume her daily performances. But Patricia went further than just reversing her original decision. Working with the Student Activities Office, she announced the creation of the Campus Music Corner program, which would provide official support for student musicians while maintaining appropriate guidelines. The program would include weather protection for instruments, basic sound equipment, and formal recognition of the musical performances as part of campus cultural activities. The announcement came just hours before the planned grand finale concert. Instead of a protest, the event transformed into a celebration. Over 2,000 people gathered in the main quad, including students, faculty, staff, alumni, and community members who had been following the story. Lisa took the stage, an actual stage this time, provided by the university, and played her heart out. But the most powerful moment came when she invited everyone to join her in singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the song that had started Maya's flash mob movement. 2,000 voices singing together created a sound that could be heard across the entire campus. Patricia, watching from her office window, finally understood what she had almost destroyed and what the community had fought so hard to save. The old oak tree corner was restored the following Monday, but it was better than before. Lisa's piano sat under a new weather shelter, surrounded by benches for listeners, with a small plaque reading Community Music Corner, where campus hearts gather. Patricia learned that leadership sometimes means admitting when you're wrong, and that the most important aspects of university life can't be measured in donor dollars or policy compliance. The greatest lesson came from watching a community unite around something beautiful and then fight creatively and peacefully to preserve it. Lisa's music had returned, but it brought with it something even more valuable, proof that when people care deeply about something, they have the power to protect it, restore it, and make it even better than it was before.